Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you're ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit Podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hello and welcome, Summit host Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on this podcast, Virtual Summit Podcast. I am extremely excited for today's episode with Lisa Edwards, who's going to be giving us some incredible insight into sponsors on virtual summits and what to do if maybe your summit doesn't get the results you were looking for originally, and all kinds of more insight and value. So you're going to want to stick with us the entire time. Lisa, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come talk to me and my audience.
Oh, Mark, thank you so much. I'm so excited and pumped. I love summits, so this is great.
Well, we share that totally in common, and I know we're going to get into some amazing insights about your experience, your journey, and what you did to actually absolutely crush your summits, and what you've done to overcome some summits that maybe didn't do so well. But before we jump into those details, I'd love for you to give my audience just a little bit more information about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Lisa Edwards. As you know, I started a brick and mortar photo business about 12 years ago. And then in about 2015, I kind of started Photo Bacon to kind of take what I've learned in the business of photography to help other photographers. And from there, just learned about summits, started getting into that. And I've also done a dog summit too, which is kind of a random fact.
No, I love that. So a couple great points here is I love the fact that as a photography and wedding expert that you took on this kind of online, you took on a summit to start this online kind of revenue or exposure. And I know there's a lot of, entrepreneurs out there in brick and mortar businesses or service-based companies that could be actually crushing it even more if they took advantage of some of these kind of online marketing strategies. So I love to see that you were one of those early adapters. You were a pioneer in your industry, if I can say that. And I actually love the anti-aging or the aging dog summit.
Aging dog, yeah.
And what's great about that, and we're going to get into some of the details of that summit, but what I love about it is the specificity of that summit. So it's something that I talk about regularly is going general and generic can sometimes create a little bit of just interest, but not enough not enough conversions, whereas something super specific like that can. So I love that. So why don't you kind of give us the overview real quick of the two different summits, how they kind of did and how they kind of didn't, and then we're going to get into the details.
Right. So I did. I've done two photography ones. The first hit it out of the park. I felt it was my first one. I was kind of a nobody, and I got about 5,100, 5,200 registrants. Not like I think 4,500 of those were brand new. So to my email list, and my email list was a couple thousand maybe. I made. Let's see. I have the stats, so I'm going to look at this quick so I remember. The summit recordings, I sold 14,700 in that, and then did 15,000 on the back end in one of my courses. So overall, about $30,000. So it was amazing. And then the second summit I did that I'll tell you a little bit about. There's some things that I didn't do that I should have done. Maybe I got a little cocky, thought I didn't have to do it. Specifically getting some in-kind sponsorships to help promote. So I was relying solely on speakers instead of also kind of having some guaranteed marketing. And that one, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I got it was about 1,500 registrants, and I don't know, I think it was like 3,000, 5,000 in sales. And then as far as the summit passes, and then I remarketed that. So this was last January. I remarketed it in that April. So about, 3-4 months after. And I did end up hitting, getting over that 5,000 registrants hump, I should say. And that's what I really wanted to do, because I didn't promise my speakers that, but I referenced that was what my last summit got. So for me, it felt like I had lied to them, even though, I didn't technically lie, but I felt like I didn't keep my end of the bargain up, if that makes sense.
Now let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
Virtual Summit's software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summit's software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
For a lot of you, let me reiterate what Lisa's just said for all of our summit hosts out there. She went from a very small list, kind of just getting into the no real online business, just getting into it, to a list of 5,000 engaged and qualified subscribers who then went on to convert into a total of about $30,000. And that was just off of one summit, and then did similar results ongoing with that as well. So this to me is a huge inspiration moment, because there's a lot of our summit hosts that are sitting right in their homes right now, in their cars, at the gym, listening to this going, like, I want to do what Lisa's done, but like, who am I to do it? Like, I don't have the authority. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the information. Like, did you have any of those kind of feelings when you're getting there?
Yeah.
How'd you overcome it?
Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, I know I'm a good photographer, but I'm a nobody. Nobody knows who I am. Like, how am I? And that was my biggest fear, something that almost held me back. And it was like, okay, you can do this. You've got this. So I kind of sat down and thought, okay, what do I have that can make me be seen as more credible, even if it's not in the photo industry? And so it's kind of in the photo industry, but I sort of randomly got a photo assignment from the Wall Street Journal in my town of 33,000 people. So I'm like, I can list that as a client, right? Or as a paying, customer, I guess you could say. What else, what else have I been featured on? Where else have I been published, even though it has nothing to do with portrait photography and wedding photography, and that kind of thing? What award? I won some local award. It's like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just kind of, all these little things that I could put, and I didn't put them all, but in my kind of a little bit about me at the end of my invitation emails, as well as on I had a page that speakers could view to kind of see more about me and like see that I'm a real human being with a real business. Because I feel like even though some of them may not relate specifically to the industry or whatever, the fact that you've either worked with some like bigger businesses or high quality clients that they may recognize, or that you've had gotten awards, will just be little like, okay, this person is legit. And so whether that mattered to them, maybe it didn't, but to me, it made me feel like even just the process of digging all those little things up, like, I think gave me the confidence as well.
Yeah, and you bring up such a great point here. And I want to reference a good friend of mine, Dave Rogenmoser, over at the company Proof. He actually talked about, like, we've all seen the as seen on.
Oh, yeah.
The images and the information on people's websites. So they're there to help. Their company helps people establish more proof of credibility, concept, etc.
Oh, cool.
They did some research to show that when people have the as seen on, images on their website, it increases the conversions. And I can't remember the exact number, but it increased them dramatically. But what they found out, and so he started doing that right off the bat before his business had any like big names like or whatnot to put on there. What they found out is as they were established and more on like entrepreneur.com, Forbes, whatever, as they put those type of images on there, it didn't actually increase the conversions at all. So what that means is that people don't really care what your credibility is as long as you have something. So you were what I call a perfect example of an entrepreneur, being resourceful and using things to support your credibility. And I think that's a great learning or teaching moment for all of our summit hosts that are listening in. So I want to jump into some of these questions that I got popping up in my head now. So first off, for your first summit, for the wedding and photography, who was your audience exactly?
Yeah, so wedding and portrait photographers. specifically, if I want to get super specific, like women who are moms, like ages like, 24 to 40, kind of, maybe 30 to 45. But photographers who kind of had already been in it, though there definitely were some beginners. But their struggle was getting enough clients. Especially the first summit I did was especially getting booked solid during that first quarter of the year, which is like the dead season for most specifically portrait photographers. Weddings as well, they happen mostly in the summer, but that's sort of, that's.
Yeah, that's perfect. So what I love about this is that you're a perfect example for our summit hosts that are out there. I think a lot of people in the online industries, we think of like internet marketers being the people who are going to run summits. But this is a perfect example. Your audience isn't even like online course taking type of people. They have brick and mortar businesses in service-based industries, and they were interested, consumed, got value from your virtual summit, and you were able to monetize that, which takes me to my next question. What did you do? What did you provide for these photography businesses? Was it a course? Like, what was the back end? What was the sale?
Oh, so you mean not the summit, but what I was selling on the back end?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I have a course called Tween Booking Blueprint. So ages 10 to 12, that kind of preteen, you could call it, a course on how to market and book sessions of those sessions during your slow season, which is a very niche, it's kind of an untapped market that I give them the, email scripts, exactly how to run the session, that kind of thing.
That's some great insight. Now let's have a word from our sponsor.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your virtual summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummits.com.
Perfect. And so now, as you ran this summit to other people that were in a service-based business, brick and mortar business, and then they purchased the online course, how did this help, or did it help your actual photography business?
Oh, like taking of photos?
Yes.
No, it didn't. I don't think it helped that. I mean, I don't think it helped that at all. I guess that was never the goal. I mean, my goal still is kind of to do more online business and less actual photography.
So your goal here was not to benefit, like bring exposure or customers into your actual photography business, but it was to start an online stream of income.
Right. Yes.
Perfect. Excellent. And then, so moving forward with this, then with your speakers, how did you decide the speakers? Like what type of speakers and who are you going to reach out? And the reason I'm asking these questions is because I love how specific and non like online marketing your business actually is. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are in these industries that could benefit from running a summit. Right. So how did you decide on your speakers and where did you kind of find them?
Yeah, well, the whole theory, so I took, as we talked about earlier before this, Naveed Moaz's, probably slaughtering is his name, course, and he kind of teaches it in this way where you want to first reach out to people you kind of know, get some people that now you can use as social proof when you reach out to bigger speakers. And so for me, that was huge. So I reached out first, I had already been in it so long, I have bought in courses, I've paid other photography mentors who have online businesses for coaching. So I reached out to people who I had first already bought from, and maybe had a little bit. I'm not that great at relationships. Like I'll just put it that way. Some people are so good at networking. That's not me. So I didn't have like really great relationships, but I started with those people. And so I got my first 3 or 4 speakers that way. And actually one of them, it was so perfect. She had already bought my Tween course that I told you about, and she was the president of the Professional Photographers of America. And she had reached out saying how she loved the course. So that was like the perfect social proof for me to have her as a speaker. I knew she didn't have an email list at all. She just happened to, she's a speaker who speaks at all the photo conferences. She was the head of the PPA. But that was like, for me, that was like, oh my gosh, she said yes. This is like what I needed to get the ball rolling. So then I reached out. I really just kind of did a lot of research, people I had already been following. And it's interesting. I kind of tried some more top level people, middle and bottom. And I really got some of everything. And then I kind of asked friends for recommendations. So I had a few people who were no names as well. And the great thing about them was that they're so raw and real, if that makes sense, versus a lot of photographers who maybe already have online businesses selling courses really kind of stick to almost the same thing or variation for any like podcast interview, summit, that kind of thing. Whereas you're really getting this raw information. You're not getting any like more traffic from them, but you're getting really high quality content as well. I went off on a tangent, so.
No, that was perfect. And actually you bring up a great point. And I always highly recommend, I do this on all of my summits, is of course you want the bigger names, you want people with audiences and lists and communities and engagement, but some of those, what I call hidden gems, who are actually industry experts, but they don't have this big online following or things like that. They get overlooked all the time. And there's two aspects of it. One, they provide, as you just said, Lisa, so much almost better quality information for your audience. But two, a lot of times they'll go out and they'll promote it far harder and more than even the big influencers. So sometimes they're even more valuable than the people who have bigger lists. So I love that. I think that was a great insight and information. So now I want to jump into a really important topic, something that I think our summit hosts are going to get a lot of value from. And it's a specific way that you used to increase the success of your summit. And I want to talk about what that way is. And then we're going to circle back and come up with what happened when you went away from it. So let's first talk about what was the thing that brought some of the best success, and then how did you do it?
Yeah, so huge success. And actually part of what we talked about, my fear of like, I'm a nobody, besides writing down all my little, what have I accomplished, was also, how can I get some logos on my website, on the page that speakers are going to go to learn more to see if they want to speak. So I wanted to get any sponsor, I didn't even care if I did want them to promote, but I almost at the first time didn't even care at all. I just wanted that for me, it's my photo lab. The photo labs that print our photos and ship them to us are really big sponsors. So White House Custom Color, probably no one knows who they are, but I've been a customer of theirs for 7-8 years. Like, let's just reach out and see if they would be willing to be listed as a sponsor and to help promote. I didn't have any contract. I didn't have, I didn't make it, I made the barrier to entry small, right? And so doing that, I think I had for the first summit 5 or 6, and some of them were speakers. So one guy, Cole from Cole's Classroom, he's online marketer too. I think he spoke at Traffic and Conversion Summit. I reached out to him to be a speaker and then also a sponsor at the same time. And I did that with a few others. And I didn't know it at the time until I don't think I knew the impact of that. I just wanted speakers to think I was credible. That's it. But I didn't realize till the second summit, when I didn't do that, how much it did affect me the first time, how much traction it really brought me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And so like when we dig into that, how did you reach out to them? How did you actually get this to happen? Because I know a lot of summit hosts are like, well, I don't even know who to ask for a sponsor. So how did you kind of go through that mindset of like, these are the people I'm going to ask? And then was it just a cold contact, or how did you approach them?
Yeah. So the first thing I thought about was, okay, who do I buy things from already? For me, that's actual photo prints. There's lighting equipment. Whatever industry you're in, just kind of list all the things you write down. Who have you been a customer, to? And then like Cole's Classroom teaches a lot of editing, but other things like photo editing. Him I reached out to, he said yes first, and then I asked him about being a sponsor as well. As far as like my photo lab, I'm not sure the exact wording I used. I think it was just something along the lines of, I tried to find the right email. Maybe I just emailed customer service and said, hey, I've been a customer XYZ years. I absolutely love you, give them a compliment. Hey, I'm running this summit where I'm teaching this. I thought it might be a good fit for your audience. I would, love for you to be an in-kind sponsor. What that means, is it's not a paid sponsorship, so you wouldn't be paying anything. But I would love to, again, the wording, I have it written, I'm more of a writer, but just then talking about a tiny bit of what, it would just be that you would help possibly promote. And then just a short email, get a response back. And then I have kind of a document that I would then send them that kind of laid it all out a little bit better.
And so what was kind of the feedback with that? So you obviously got some yeses, but what would you say?
Yeah.
A majority said yes, half said yes, a little bit less than half? Like what was kind of the ratio?
So if I'm looking at, if I'm really thinking now back about it, the first summit I did, I really think I only asked people who I kind of already was buying from and already, you know what I mean? The second summit is a little different, and I'll give you some of that here in a minute. So I think I didn't reach out to that many, but it was already people who I kind of had a relationship, semi. So I think 70% said yes, I want to say. And I wish I had that prepared, the stats, and I could look back. But as far as the second summit, the first time I launched it, I didn't do sponsors. And the second time I did, I went for the biggest companies and smaller companies. And I'd say, I really did more of a even though I don't use you, I think this would be a great opportunity. And here's what I found. Probably 10%. I think I had 8 or 9 sponsors, which was, I really wanted up to 10. It ended up good, but some of the really bigger companies weren't willing to email. We're not I was talking to one company. It was great. We talked on the phone. It seemed like it was going to be perfect. He went back to his team and they're like, actually, our marketing calendar is so booked up. There's no way we could, do this. And I think it was 3 months. It was going to be in 3 months. So there's no way we could actually do this and send out any emails and do the promoting that's what you're looking for. And I didn't have any sort of paid option. So some of those, and then I also had one speaker that was a sponsor that said, okay, you're looking for 3 emails. We could do 1. Is that, I was negotiable. Would that be okay? It was yes, and they brought great traffic. So it's interesting because you want these bigger companies that have these bigger lists, but they're actually the ones that are less likely to promote. So it's some of the, there's a sales software called Swift Galleries, and they're awesome. And they're a smaller company. They sell sales software for photographers, basically. And he did great. He did awesome at promoting. He was I don't know his exact list size, but much smaller compared to these bigger companies. So I really think reaching out to some smaller, try both smaller and bigger companies, start with who you know, but those medium to small companies are more likely to get you that traffic, I think.
Yeah, and I would definitely reiterate that. It's always best to start off with a warm contact in general, but I love the information you provided in the sense of, these are people that you're a paying customer. So you're they want to support you. They have a vested interest almost in supporting you. So you have a much higher chance of getting their involvement, especially if you're going and you're not asking for any money, which is a lot of times these companies are constantly being asked for money. And so just to clarify for our Summit hosts listening out there, this term is in-kind sponsor versus a paid sponsor. So with a paid sponsor on your summit, they're just going to give you a set amount, and in return, you're going to provide them with certain things. And one of those is obviously going to be exposure and potential traffic. But an in-kind sponsor, as Lisa was just saying, is they don't have to pay. They're agreeing more to promote or share and email your summit. So this is a great option, especially for those who have kind of concerns or maybe a little fear about reaching out and asking people for money, especially maybe on your first summit. Now, getting into this, I want to go into the elephant in the room, Lisa. I want to talk about the summit that bombed, why you think it bombed. And again, these are using bombed by your definition.
Yeah.
and then we're going to go through what happened from that. But I want to actually, before we get into like how you fixed it, how did it make you feel? Because the truth and the reality of it is, for our summit hosts listening out there, is we all eventually, if you do enough summits, you're going to have one that bombs, but it's not necessarily the end of the world. So take us there, Lisa. I want to hear about it and how you felt.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, it's interesting because the one that bombed is the one that I then relaunched, right? And so I had around 12 to 1,500 registrants. Well, if that was my first summit, that to me probably would have been a win. But my first one, it's like this comparisonitis, was 5,200, 5,100. And so the real reason I felt like it bombed was because I had already shared with everybody, the speakers, when I tried to get them as a speaker, that what my last summit was, and that I would expect that much again, right? The 5,200 registrants. And so it's such a weird thing because you don't know, because different people email at different times. You don't really know it bombs until you're like halfway through the days, and it's like, yeah, we're definitely not hitting 5,000 people. And so it was just like, God, I want to say I just felt like I wanted to curl up in a ball and like hide, and like that like feeling of like, shame. I did, just that like, I remember my husband kind of saying like, this isn't a failure. Like, first of all, he kind of reminded me, I kind of had beginner's luck that first time, but he was also the one that was like, if you feel so terrible about this, then you should probably like relaunch it. And I was like, no, I was in that like, just like, no, I can't do it. The world is ending. Like, I say that because that's how it felt. It was like the world was ending. And finally, I kind of came out of it and was like, yeah, okay, we're going to make this how I feel would be right. We're going to make it a success.
Well, and before we get into the success aspect of it, you felt, you had these emotions about it. And again, I can vouch. I've had summits that have bombed too, but in our pre-interview chat, what really stood out to me and I thought was very admirable, it wasn't even that you thought it bombed, just you weren't even just upset about it from your own perspective. You were upset about it from the speaker's perspective. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I mean, I felt like their end of it was to speak, and I didn't have a requirement to promote, but many did. So it was like I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain. I didn't bring enough people. So for me, it felt like, I did them wrong, and I didn't want them to feel like it was a waste of their time, and never want to do a summit with me or anyone else, honestly, and to feel like it was a waste. And so for me, that was a part of it for sure.
Yeah. And I think this is very commendable on your part, because I do know unfortunately, some summit hosts are out there like they're just plowing through. They don't care about the speakers. And unfortunately, that gives all of us summit hosts across the board a bad name. So the fact that you recognize that, you stood up and you said, I'm not just going to accept this, and you're going to fix it, and which we'll talk about in just a second. But I'd love to pull out some pointers, like why, like a teaching moment for our summit hosts listening in. Why do you think it didn't do as well? Like, what were some of those things that you, looking back on it, that you should have done a little bit differently?
Well, yeah. So the first thing, I mean, obviously, kind of we talked about, I didn't do the in-kind sponsorship. I think that was a huge part of it. The second thing, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like the content was far superior. I feel like the first summit was great too, but I felt like the content was just like, I was like so proud of this thing, So it wasn't the content. It was, God, it's hard to even know, but I think I did go after, and this is kind of goes along with the different levels of speakers. I did go after bigger speakers who also, I didn't have as many of that like middle group that had email lists, The bigger groups, again, like are less likely, at least from not everybody. Like I talked to you about Cole. He has a huge list. I don't know what it is, but he promoted the heck out of both of them. He was on both. But those bigger speakers weren't willing and didn't promote. And I think a big part, and this is really me looking back, is like I was relying too much on them instead of me. It's like I think diversifying your traffic is so important. Not just asking your speakers who hopefully will, but they might not. They might get sick that week. I had one speaker who was actually launching her own course that week, so she didn't promote at all. I didn't know that till after the fact, but and so, I mean, I tried. I didn't really succeed at Facebook ads, but I think as much diversifying is probably the best bet.
You've brought up such an important point here, and that is diversifying your traffic sources. And you're not alone, Lisa, as you know. So many summit hosts out there are only dependent on their speakers to promote their summit. And, you know, let's be fully transparent here. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is most of your speakers, especially the high-level influential ones, are not going to promote your summit. And at least from the standpoint of sending out a bunch of emails, they just can't. They're asked to be on everything. Their promotional calendars are already filled up. So if you're relying, one, on a summit with a bunch of influential speakers, and I'm talking to our summit hosts out there, Lisa,
right.
Right at you. Like if you're just relying on these influential speakers to promote your summit, you are probably setting yourself up for a similar scenario. So I highly recommend. I'm a big fan of finding those, what I call them, those hustlers, the ones that are still in hustle mode. They're trying to make a name for themselves. They got amazing value and information. They got some kind of audience, and they're proud to be on your summit. So they're willing to promote it, push it out to their audiences, finding more of those than the actual influential ones. And the way, and this is usually the teaching point that I'll make, is it's not so important to have a bunch of influential speakers. It's important to have a couple names that people will recognize. What's more important, and this is how you can overcome it, is by having a super specific topic or theme that they're acutely searching for, your audience, that they're acutely searching for. As long as they see one or two names they recognize, they don't care who the rest are. They just need or want the answer. So this was a very, very valuable teaching point for our audience, Lisa. So let's talk about what you did to overcome it, and how you went about this because of how you felt about the speaking.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing was planning. Okay, I'm going to relaunch this in April, right? And then one of the hardest things I ever did was write that email to send out to my speakers, right? That's like, I didn't want to. You want to keep your credibility, but you also you don't want to be like, I don't know, it's this fine line of kind of being like vulnerable, like I didn't get you what I think I should have, but also like keeping your credibility. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I'm going to jump in here for you for 1 second, because this is you're just dropping so many important teaching points here. Like, and I've seen this, and honestly, I have to embarrassingly raise my hand. I've done this. If you do enough summits, you're going to have a summit that doesn't hit the numbers you want. And it's almost easier to go into recluse mode, act like it didn't happen. Like, what summit? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, but I'm telling you, that's one of, they may not notice, but some of them will. And what Lisa's about to say here is the number one way you regain that credibility, even if you don't relaunch, even if you don't bring them a single other lead, the number one way you regain your credibility and hopefully an ongoing relationship is you own it. You're transparent and you admit what happened. So Lisa, take us through the rest of it.
Yep. So I wrote that email and just kind of said, I think I wrote like the people that I noticed really like sent out emails a lot and stuff. I said, I'm going to relaunch this. I'm looking for, sponsors if you know anyone. For the people who like promoted the heck out of it, I was like, I noticed you promoted a ton. By no means do you, and this was, you don't have, like, I just want to let you know, you did awesome. And like, don't worry if you can't promote. And maybe I don't know, but it was me kind of saying, I've noticed what you've done. You're awesome. Like, and then everyone else was just like, thank you for being a part of this. I'm looking for, sponsors. And anyway, wrote that, sent it out. And then I just started looking for in-kind sponsors, starting with some of the speakers who did have companies. I mean, one of my favorite ways to find speakers now is not just looking for online info product sellers, but like really like in the photo industry, Sticky Albums. They're a company Nate, he's awesome. He's been one of my biggest supporters. Photographers can make apps for their clients to download. He now is an email software. But like softwares where they're not actually necessarily, they're almost like a tangential, like their clients are my clients, but we're like selling different things, so we're not in competition, if that makes sense. And sorry, that was a tangent. But I really kind of started looking more at those kinds of companies and that kind of thing. So from there, I mean, I started getting on, and I'm like, okay, I hate selling. I mean, I've had done it and I'm okay at it, but like, I don't like asking anybody for it was even hard for me to like ask for a free sponsorship, but I was trying to schedule these calls, do the whole, let's see if we're a good fit to work together, all that, and that for me was really hard to do. Especially like the fear of getting the answer no for me. It's funny, everything you do, that was my biggest fear, still is in my actual photo business. Whatever your like biggest issue is, like it only follows you wherever you go. Yeah, so from there, I mean, that's basically it. And then I just did a normal email launch. I did relaunch it to my email list. And then, I ended up, we went over that. I think it was over the 5,000 mark between the two launches. I think it was around 3,500 to 4,000 for that second launch registrants we got.
Excellent point. Now let's have a quick word from our sponsor, Virtual Summit Software.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
So from disaster to domination,
yes,
Lisa, like that is a perfect example of one, how not giving up and not just accepting that the summit, didn't do as well or perform as well as you wanted, can still end up in amazing success. And I'd even like to say for a lot of our, summit hosts listening, as we wrap this episode up, that it's not just about, the size of the list, if you will. It's really about the quality engagement of it. I know my first $136,000 I ever made came from an email to a list of 900 people. So it's not really about having 10,000, 50,000. It is great to have goals and numbers, but even I would say with the 1,500 or the 1,800 leads you got, you still could have, or probably did, and then could have also engaged them and monetized them. And so it's never a disaster. We joke around the word that is disaster or bombing, but it's even 1,000 leads or 500 leads. Those are 500 potential sales that you now have lined up. So I love this story. I love the progress you made. And I love how you took ownership of it with your speakers. And I guarantee whether, even the ones that may not have said anything, that inside they're like, this Lisa gal, she's high quality. She's my peeps, So that's out there. So learn from Lisa's examples. She sets a high example, but learn from those examples on how you can take your summit, even if it doesn't perform the way you want, and still turn it into an amazing success, how you can overcome that, how you can relaunch it, and also how you got to own it too. You got to reach out to the speakers, own the success and, potentially sometimes the failures, and how it's going to paint you a long life in the business and industry. So Lisa, as we wrap this up here, I'd like to kind of ask you, do you have any, our summit hosts are always looking for speakers, and maybe many of them are going to want to reach out even further and tap into some more of that wisdom and knowledge. What's something that they should be reaching out to you on to be interviewed about, and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything photography related, I'm assuming most of your audience won't be photographers, but anything that I talked about on here, whether it is summit related or about failures, that kind of thing, reach out to me, I guess. They can find me on social media on Facebook, just search Photo Bacon, as well as drop me an email if you'd like at lisa@photobacon.com.
Excellent. And then is there any kind of final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Oh, yes, I have one small little tip. If you have a family or just want to have a life, don't ever end your summit at midnight, or don't end your summit day at midnight. Make sure it happens in the middle of the day. My first 2 summits, I would stay up till midnight to make sure everything rolled over to the next day. And I was up till 2 a.m. some nights, so it can happen at noon or 1.
That is an amazing. I mean, I can't just let it end like that. I know we got to get off here, but so what difference did you see any difference in conversions from having it? Was it better, worse, or practically the same?
I think it was the same. I mean, I've only done multiple day events, but I did have a couple confused emails saying, why did it all of a sudden change? Because time zone, I think most people, like, whether they're Pacific, Mountain, Central, Eastern time, like midnight, they're not up anyway. But if they're watching it in the middle of the day and it's like noon Pacific time and you're saying it's rolling over at noon Eastern or whatever, get confused. But yeah, I didn't see any.
That's amazing insight. Now I'm going to have to go try this out because I've actually never ended a summit during the day. It's always been at the night. I don't think I've ever ended any campaign during the day. So again, I just couldn't stop us when we're all the way to the very end. Lisa, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to share these amazing insights and being fully transparent and open with our audience so that they can learn and grow as well. Again, just thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. This was absolutely a blast.
Excellent. And for you summit hosts out there, thank you for listening and tuning in to Lisa's amazing insights. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now, don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes and check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.